I'm here with Clive Faulkner and his son Thomas from the Montgomeryshire Wildlife Trust. Clive, we've chosen a wonderful day to visit your area, haven't we?
You're going to have to believe me, but this lake, this landscape here is absolutely stunning. We're actually in the Pimlimmon Mountains, in the heart of the Cambrian Mountains, and yeah, we got beautiful landscapes here. Unfortunately, because we're in such a remote mountain region, we get the weather.
Yeah, certainly remote and very high.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, although the sea is, maybe 5 miles over the way there, the Cambrians come in, yeah, we have some big peaks here. Certainly for Mid Wales, we're within 4 miles of the highest peak, Pimlimmon.
So this particular lake, I believe, is at 1,700 feet?
Yeah. Your ears pop as you drive up the road.
I noticed that. In fact, I think some of the birds are getting nosebleeds because we're up so high. The lake itself, though, how was this formed?
This one actually is modified. The hydro scheme. They actually take hydroelectric power from it. There's a dam just at the other end. It's a natural glacial formation, but it's been as I say, a small dam just to raise the level, and they actually take hydropower from it. So it's not really natural, but it is based on a natural lake.
And being this high up, we don't expect to see much invertebrate life. So with the grasslands around, that's going to be most of the food for the fish. Can you tell us something about the nature?
Yeah, absolutely, completely right. Yeah, the water is really clean, as you would imagine at this sort of remote mountain spot. The water is beautifully clean, but of course there's no insects, or very few insects. And so actually the fish are reliant. I mean, okay, they're really interesting fish. They're quite small, unique little chaps, but actually they're reliant on the insects that blow in from the surround. So we actually do a lot of work with the local landowners. We're trying to get them to manage it for a diversity of insects, obviously for its own, insects and the birds that feed on it, but also they blow in and feed the fish. So it's an ecosystem which really depends on the management of the whole area. So we've got a team of people up here working on that.
Right, now you say that the fish in here are quite unique. I see from your literature that they're black-finned.
Black-finned brown trout, yeah. To be fair, it's actually something that I don't really know much about. Conservationists are dreadful, really. We tend to neglect fish. We recognise that they're unusual. It's basically one of these island populations. I mean, I say an island. I mean, obviously this lake is an island in a landscape of mountains. So yeah, these fish have been isolated for tens of thousands of years.
That's fascinating. And the water, you say it's very clean.
Yeah.
It looks quite brackish.
Okay, well it's got it's peaty, but in terms of the pollutants, the sort of the nitrates and the phosphates that you'd get, so although it's peaty and it's quite acid, it's chemically clean, if you like.
What other sort of wildlife do you have here that is of particular interest to you?
Well, we've got all sorts up here. The nice thing about the mountains is that the wildlife you get is unusual. So we've got everything from carnivorous plants to hen harriers, and the osprey comes up to have a go at the black-finned brown trout. We've got red grouse up on the heather. We've even got black grouse put in an appearance. So, if you like, the list of those really unusual sort of mountain birds and animals, we got a good list of those.
So you're doing all the conservation work here for the natural wildlife, and I take it the grouse and that are introduced anyway. You must have your work cut out.
The grouse, it's a natural population. It's an unmanaged population. In fact, it's a remnant of what was here in sort of as the glacier retreated 10,000 years ago. The grouse followed that in. So yeah, they are natural. It's a good natural population. Well, when I say a good natural population, they're quite scarce, but they're doing okay.
You mentioned earlier about the osprey.
Yes.
I gather you're going down to see those.
Well, that's right. Well, the lovely thing, again, talking about water quality and the importance of water quality for fish, we've got down on the Dovey Estuary, maybe 5 miles down the road, we've got the ospreys are coming back to Wales now. It's an indication of the quality of the fish. And Thomas here is volunteering down there. We've got a team of people who are keeping an eye on the osprey, watching that they're not being interfered with, and introducing them to the people who drive past, because the site's quite public. So we've got cameras on them, and it's a nice spectacle. So we're off down there in a minute to see how they're getting on.
Well, here's a new venue. Looks like something out of Lord of the Rings. Half an hour ago, you wouldn't have even been able to see across it. We are at 1,700 feet. This is Llyn Bugeilyn, right up in the Welsh mountains. And it's a sort of venue that I have never come across. I'm used to fishing lowland reservoirs, lakes, etc. Nothing like this. The sheer sides that come down, it's very picturesque, and I'm sure if it had been 2 days ago, when the temperature was 24 degrees, as opposed to this morning, when the temperature is just 7, it would have looked absolutely fantastic. Looking at the water from here, it's quite brown, clear, but has a definite tinge to it. I was talking to the conservation manager, Clive Faulkner, earlier on, and he explains that this is very clean water, and the reason for the colour is because of the peat in the area. Because of this, the water's quite acid, and there isn't a lot of invertebrate life. The trout, therefore, don't have a lot to feed on. They're quite small, and they rely on insects that are blown onto the water from the surrounding grassland. Now today, whilst we've got a breeze, it's so cold the insects haven't even woken up yet. The swallows are out looking for them. Hopefully some will start landing on the water later and the trout will start having a go at them. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, this is just so different for me. I can't wait to get started. I'm going to set up. Well, that's been a nice walk. Started off by the boathouse down there. Walked through sphagnum moss. I'll tell you what, every hanging basket in England could have been made from the moss in that field. And some of it was very deep and heavy going. I've decided to stop here for a while because I'm a bit sheltered by the big hills behind. Got a little bit of surface ripple. I can get a good line out. The water, I can't see how deep it is. So I'm going to fish from the bank to start off with. I might decide to wade later, which is why I had my wading staff, which you saw a moment ago. Because there are, let's put that down a second. Because there's no real insect life at the moment, and you know, the fish hopefully will take whatever they can see, I've gone for some bright flies. So rather than fishing nymphs, which is a method I particularly love, and I really wanted to fish dries today, obviously there's not a fish moving. So I'm going to fish traditional wet flies. The rod I'm using today is a 9-foot 6-weight. Now you might think that's a bit big for the size of trout that I'm going for in here, but I need something because of this wind that's got a bit of extra power to put the line out. The reel, matching it. Little story behind this reel. This is an Orvis, although you'll never see a mark on it. The reason being, it's one of their original prototypes. Excuse me, I'm going to put my hood up. It's one of their original prototypes for the Orvis Vortex reel. I've got a special deal on this because they were selling it off cheap at one of the Orvis's outlet shops, and it's a beautiful light little reel. Oh, a lovely drag on it, the clicking. I've become a bit of a tackle tart with this one. But anyhow, that's not really what you're interested in. Let's show you the flies that I've decided to go for. I've gone for a 3-team leader. So I've got 3 separate wets on below a tapered leader. There we go. So I've got my tapered leader down to a section of 8 pounds. I've then got a section of 6 pound, and then my top dropper, a very nice traditional fly. There it is, a silver Invicta. The next one, whilst the water is quite dark and I want a fly that the fish can see, I'm still going with traditionals. So I've gone for a mallard and claret on the middle. And the point fly, an old Scottish favourite, normally used on bright days and it isn't that bright, is the Dunkeld. And with those 3, I'm going to be able to cover various depths, try my retrieves, and see if there are any trout in this particular location. Well, the rain's really started to come down now. I want to try and get some fish on the bank before I get totally saturated. Actually, it's not terribly deep out there. I think I'm dragging a bit on the bottom. That wind took that then. The line's going out in one direction, the wind just grabs it and says, right, you're not having that. It's very rugged around here, and that wind is whistling over the hills. It's quite chilly. My hands are getting quite cold. There's a tank. Silver Invicta, I think, on the top dropper. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's gone for the Dunkeld. Nope, wrong again. Mallard and Claret. Let's get him out of here then. Look at that. Here we go, my first little wild Welsh from the Ice Age brown trout. Let's just get him unhooked before I show you. Oh, he's very warm. So the water temperature is a lot higher than I expected. There we go. Now then. Oh, steady on, lad, steady on. Now that's a very dark fish. Look at the red dots on the side, black on the back, and there, the black fin. The dorsal fin is very, very dark, as they said. Now you can go back. And off he's gone instantly. Number one, weighed in, got a fish in the rain. Right, now I can carry on. Oh. It's a nice little take that as well, very positive. I don't know whether we'll get many much larger than that. I'll leave my net down there, I'm optimistic now. You might be wondering what I'm doing with a washing up bowl around my waist. I say some anglers take everything with them, apart from the kitchen sink. Well, this is about as close as I could get. It's actually a line tray. It's been specifically designed to hold the line. Now, the reason I wanted it was because I wasn't sure what the bank was going to be like and how much gorse there was going to be, etc., that the line could get tangled in. Also, in a wind like this, if you're out wading, as you're retrieving, the line's blowing away from you, and that restricts your cast. This particular tray has got cones inside it. I'll show you those in a second. Let me just get this line out of the way. There. And the idea is that the cones stop the line from tangling so that it comes out of the basket nice and easily. There we are. The fly line sits in the tray in between and around the cones. So the loops are separated. Consequently, when you cast, the cones allow the line to release off without bunching up. You know, when you cast sometimes, you end up with a couple of 3 loops, they hit your bottom ring and you've got no cast distance at all. This does really help to prevent it. And the manufacturers say they reckon it can add another 4 yards to your cast. Well, it worked that time. I'm going to have to take some more line out if I cast with the wind in this direction. The only trouble is, as I'm moving closer to the shore, there is a lily bed very close in to me. So I don't want to go catching up on those and wasting flies. So I might be tempted, whilst I've had a few pulls here, to move on up in a little bit, just to get out the way of the lilies. Anyhow, washing up bowl. Well, I had a fish very early on here, on the third cast, and I've had a couple of little taps, but nothing really positive. The problem is, as I'm allowing the line to drift around and retrieving, I'm picking up something out there. I think there must be some stick-ups, you know, weeds below the surface that I can't see. So I'm not allowing myself the full potential of fishing the line right out. So I'm going to move up a little bit. There's another little point farther up, and see if I can't take advantage of the wind in that area and cover some fresh water, cover some fresh fish. Let's just wind it in. Haven't had a great deal of success with the wets, a few little taps, a few little tugs. Maybe the flies were slightly too big. So I'm changing tactics again. I'm going to go for something that's a little bit more natural. On the top, a cruncher, size 14, a black and peacock spider, which hopefully will look like some of the beetles that get blown in, that they get used to, and a little green hollowed dialback, size 12, that to help the flies turn over. Just something with a little bit of sparkle. I've also been picking up the bottom a fair bit, so these flies being lighter than the wets should stop that happening. Well, it looks as though the change worked. My second cast I had a little tap, and now I've got a little fish. All I've got to do is find a way of landing him. Oh, and he is little as well. Oh, that is tiny. Tiny but perfectly formed. Look at that. I can't really reach him, he's only small. I'm going to risk swinging him in. Straight to my hand. Come on, there's a beauty. There's a little beauty. Took the cruncher right on the top. And look at that. What a beautiful little fish. Probably only about 2.5, 3 ounces. But I felt the take, definitely felt the take. And on my cold hands in this lovely Welsh rain, it's a lovely warm fish, very, very welcome. And now he's going to go back. There we go. And away he's gone. Was I given duff information about only using traditionals? We'll soon find out. Start again. I'm a happy bunny. Right. Because I want that that fish took the top dropper, and I did start the retrieve almost instantly that the flies hit the water, which is the same as I did the time before. So whilst there's nothing actually moving on the top, it would appear that they're quite near the surface. So if this rain eases up, hopefully a little bit later, we might get a chance to put a few dries out, just twitch them a little bit, to give them a little bit of a wake, bit of movement, and give them something to rise to. I'm looking forward to trying that. I am getting a serious battering from this wind. There's my leader. Everything was going fine, and then as the line went out, I saw it just double back in the air all on its own, and then a second later the cat's paw hit the water, and that's what it can do to your line in just one cast. So I've no option here, I think, but to tie a whole new team on. Start from scratch. Right, obviously I'm not going to leave this line on the bank. So I've got this little bit of kit that I'm playing with, called a Mono Master. And that will just chew that line through the slot. There we are. What a marvellous little idea. You probably can't see it too well, but there's like a little hairbrush in there. And I simply put a bit of the line into the end, turn this knob, and around it goes. And it winds all the line on and keeps it nice and safe inside. So when I get home, I just pop the top off, pair of scissors down through the middle with the brush, and all my waistline for the day goes in the bin, not in the countryside. So it's an invention from America, fairly new on the market in the UK, but I'm very pleased to have one. Very useful bit of kit. Well, because it's so windy, I think 3 is not a good idea. So I'm just going to go for 2. I'm going to put Cocky Bondu on the top dropper, which is would be the fly of choice in normal conditions, because the Cocky Bondu beetle lives in these hills, and it's what the trout expect to see when it gets blown onto the water and to feed on. Obviously it's not getting blown on the water today. One of those things getting blown on the day is me. But I'm going to try this on the top dropper, and I'm going for the mallard and claret again on the point, because that did catch me a fish earlier. And as you can see, this wind just can't make up its mind. My face, my back, both at once. It's going to be interesting casting again, but with 2 it may be a bit easier. That's me done, I'm afraid. The rain's been coming down, the wind, casting's been very difficult, if not positively dangerous at times. The rain's run down my arm. I know I'm waterproof because this is Gore-Tex, but it's still got in there. My hands are cold, my feet are cold, I'm cold. Call me a fair weather angler if you must, but I'm going off to get warm, get dry and have a cup of tea. Well, that's better. I've warmed up a little bit now. Got myself a nice warm cup of tea, keep my hands back, get the blood back in my fingers. Taking refuge here in the boathouse, which was great. I'm very pleased that this is here. This morning when I arrived, came over the top through dense fog. Well, actually it wasn't fog, it was low cloud, because we're up so high. Couldn't even see the lake. Saw a dark shape in the distance. It was the boathouse here. Came down to the boathouse, and there could see about 20 yards into the lake because of all the fog. I'm sure if the weather had been much better, you'd have come around the corner, over the hill, looked down on this, and what a spectacular sight would have met you first thing. I'm looking forward to doing that. I will be back to do that, because this is a fantastic little venue. You've got truly wild trout. So if you'd like to try a day here, simply book online. You can get a day ticket online through the Llyn Foundation at www.llynfoundation.org. Find out about the float tubing, because it is allowed here, and that's what I want to try next. I'm going to be back sooner rather than later with my float tube and have a go for these lovely black-finned little wild browns. But now it's time for me to get changed. I've got to make a move.